Your career started in B2C, which is a different world than at least where we are now. How did it look like back then?
ITC is a great company, Jaideep. So again, great fun, um, very quirky people. I joined them in '95, and one of my early postings, I think July August of '95, I was in Jodhpur launching Bristol Menthol.
Okay.
That meant I was on a cycle carrying the stocks and point of purchase material, going panwala to panwala, installing that stuff. And that's very normal for any ITC. So you get on a cycle and you live the life of the sales, the cigarette sales vendor. Remember, these are not employees; uh, these are distributors or semi-distributors in their own right. They buy stock with their money and position it. So I did that for 4 days, then went into hospital with sunstroke.
My
Not being
goodness.
used to, I think coming from Calcutta, this was and Ahmedabad, which also was not that severe,
Hmm.
but it was 50 degrees or thereabouts.
Hmm.
After whole days of cycling, it was quite murderous. The underlying principle for me is brand is equal to business model. So
Okay.
this is not, you can't sell it like toffee or whatever unless what you promise as value is actually delivered through the business model. As a marketer, you fail. So I'm very wary about making claims, etc. You have to therefore fundamentally get involved in shaping the proposition itself that gets
Hmm.
given to the market and
Hmm.
in testing. So, like one word of advice I would always give is don't campaign till you have lighthouse in B2B. So, you launch a new product and you jump into the market with PR, digital, all that stuff. Don't do that. Find the first two or three customers, have brilliant implementation, create advocacy. Once you have lighthouse, then only.
Welcome back to the Marketing Couch. Thank you for your continued support and for being part of our growing community. Before we dive in, I have some exciting news. The next few episodes are going to be festival specials where I am bringing you conversations with some of the most iconic B2B marketing leaders in India. Think of it as my way of celebrating these incredible leaders we have in this space. And today's guest is someone I have looked up to for years. My guest is Krishnan Chatterjee. Krishnan currently heads Google Cloud India Marketing, but his journey spans across both B2C and B2B enterprise marketing. From his early days at ITC to building iconic brands at HCL, SAP, and now Google Cloud. Krishnan's leadership and marketing insights are covered across all media channels. In fact, not just in this country, but also internationally as well. Now, since there is already so much content available about Krishnan's professional achievements, his B2B marketing view, I took a different approach. I wanted to explore not just the marketing leader, but also Krishnan as a person beyond work, including his passion for music. That said, I would not let go an opportunity for marketing. In today's conversation, you will discover how he believes brand equals business model and what that really means. His philosophy of looking for discontinuities rather than disruptions, how AI is fundamentally changing B2B marketing funnels, and the role music plays in his life and how he balances it all. And if you stay till the end, Krishnan shares why he thinks marketers should build their careers around their second love and not their first. I'm truly grateful to Krishnan for taking this time to share not just for his professional insights, but also his personal philosophy as well. And if you find value in this conversation, please share it with your network. With that, I bring you Krishnan. Hey Krishnan, welcome to the Marketing Couch. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Jaideep. My pleasure. The couch must be behind you because I can't see it right now.
You can probably see partially, but anyway, there's a more leisure couch behind me. You are absolutely right. But yeah, that's where usually I go and take a break. But yeah, you are actually looks really composed and chilled and relaxed. So I think this is a perfect place and a beginning to start our conversation. I want to start with the philosophical question. Currently, you head the Google Cloud India marketing, but your journey goes beyond, much beyond that, actually. I mean, you spend time in B2C, you have spent time in B2B tech, and you're still in B2B tech. You have had business leadership roles. And I know that you are also a creative guy with your band. Well, many of you know that, many of us know that you are a driving force behind many brands and iconic brands. I would love to know who is the real man behind all of that, right? All of this glitter. Let's set aside all the titles, the accolades, the experiences, the impressive CV. If we keep all of that aside, what would remain is truly Krishnan.
Yeah. So is there a question there?
It is a question.
So I guess the central idea, if you were to strip everything away, you're probably left with an idea. And the central idea in how I like doing things is, I have this line which I use to write music called "create, not just consume," and that is, and that would probably explain a lot of, though you did describe me way beyond the reality, but nonetheless, with that poetic license, you
That's
strip it
human. That's your
create, not just consume.
trademark humility.
There's no humility, it's just that is the truth.
Great. I think that kind of sets the premise well. So let's walk back to the memory lane, right? Where did you grow up, and what were your earliest memories of, or memories that actually shaped your life to some extent?
Now I understand the couch. So I grew up mostly in a place called Bali in Howrah district, not Indonesia, but in a suburb of Kolkata. And some of the early memories that shaped my life there is, one is towards Srirampur, and you will come to Uttarpada. And in Uttarpada, there is Amor Mishtanno Bhandar, who makes something and still does called Hinger Kochuri. And I have now eaten, I am a foodie. I have eaten in places all across the world. I can, in almost any city you go to, I can tell you a great place to eat. But Amor in Uttarpada remains in my top 10 globally.
Seriously?
Yeah.
How come I missed that? But yeah, I'll probably try that next time. Okay.
You must just go there. It's outstanding. Hasn't changed, I think, in 5 decades, but extraordinary stuff. So that probably is my earliest shaping memory, if that counts.
Okay. As far as you as a foodie is concerned, and did you always knew what you're going to do, what you wanted to become?
Yeah, actually, I never did. I still don't. So I would say the way my life has progressed is, AI is driven by this concept called the next best action. So I was always the next best friend. Somebody or the other who has a vision and is doing something, and I would just traipse along and somehow or the other fall into something that was interesting. So I can't claim any great foresight, or I don't even think I really designed any kind of career path. I've always looked at enjoying every day. My career goal actually seems to be that, can I enjoy every single day? So I keep trying to find opportunities for enjoyment.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And as I am aging more, it seems a lot more real and true. I mean, relishing and realizing every day, enjoying that day, probably is more important than the aspirational thoughts, right? I think that is so true. Are you someone who sort of reads to escape or reads to discover?
I think I read to escape. I think, and I'm an indiscriminate reader, and to a large extent, again, maybe that's another shaping memory going back to Bali, because Bali had a Bali municipal library, which interestingly enough was 4 floors of books. And from the age of 10, I used to go every few days, pick 2 books. So I would walk along shelves picking books. So, for example, I read Alexander Dumas' Three Musketeers, if I'm not mistaken, was book 4 in a 7 book series. So I walked along the shelf reading all 7. I read Joyce's Ulysses at the ripe age of 11, and I was reading Harold Robbins by the time I was 12, much to the horror of one of my aunts who had read the author. So it's always been, I think, again, what can you enjoy? Reading is great pleasure.
Any specific book you remember that, looking back, sort of makes you feel that there is a deep impression of that has left you? I mean, any specific book?
Yeah, I would say it's across some books and movies as well. Books, I must say, one of the early books which created huge impact was I don't know if you've read this book called Of Mice and Men.
No, I
It's
have
by
not.
John Steinbeck, and for a variety of reasons, that book really shook my world in a serious way. And the other one, I must say, would have been again early years, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hmm.
Douglas Adams, the whole
Yep.
ridiculousness of existence itself was well painted. And potentially that's where I always have something to laugh about. That I might have picked up from there. So there were some, but one movie I must say might have had a hand in shaping my future choices. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
movie called Shima Baddho by Satyajit Ray,
Satyajit Ray. Hmm.
and I think that movie is about a very successful professional, a concept quite alien, let's say, in suburban Kolkata of the 70s and 80s. Not alien, let's say, if you were in the heart of the city, but if you were outside, who got into a lot of trouble. But just the lifestyle of a successful executive did have an impact and potentially shaped some desire to do an MBA, though I might not have done much work to actually get there, but that did transpire to be something I thought would be good to do.
So you went to Presidency College back then, I assume, and now it is university, deemed university, and you studied economics.
That's correct.
And what was the plan after that? Do you wanted to become like a finance guy or an economics guy,
So,
or you just wanted to study
Jaideep,
economics?
who is your podcast meant for? I just want to ensure I'm not misguiding somebody, but who's
All
your
right.
target?
Don't worry about that. But yeah, it is largely the B2B world, but it's okay.
Okay, so not young, impressionable minds, I hope.
Even if they are, trust me, they are more smart than what you and I were in 20s, I'm sure.
So that's great. So, for example, I landed up in presidency because of my school friend Saurabh Banerjee, who is now in the Times of he's an editor at Times of India. You can look him up. But he wanted to go to presidency, and like I said, next best friend. I hung out with him to give him company. So both he and I joined presidency economics. And by the third year of my college, I had a college band. We were playing a lot of gigs. So I didn't really have a specific idea other than the fact that I did take the CAT, which was the prior year to, the final year three of college. But in
Okay.
that year three of college itself, I did nothing. So I was playing a lot of shows. So I did reach a point in time where I realized that if I didn't get through CAT, I had applied or sat nowhere else. So it was either get through CAT or not go to college at all.
So
So
practically, there was no next best option available.
there was no next best option. So fortunately, I then managed to stumble into an IM. But so I can't say that these are very glorious moments. And for impressionable minds, I will not recommend my past.
I'm sure a lot of young guys will envy that playing, doing bands in college and then getting through IMA. Obviously after that you went to ITC and your career started in B2C, which is a different world than at least where we are now. How did it look like back then, ITC and also the B2C world? And you spent quite a long time, actually, almost close to 10 years, I guess,
So
right?
ITC is a great company, Jaideep. So again, great fun, very quirky people. I joined them in '95, and one of my early postings, I think July, August of '95, I was in Jodhpur launching Bristol Menthol.
Okay.
And that meant I was on a cycle carrying the stocks and point of purchase material going Panwala to Panwala, installing that stuff. And that's very normal for any ITC
Are you
sort of startup.
serious?
Yeah, so you get on a cycle and you live the life of the cigarette sales vendor. Remember, these are not employees, uh, these are distributors or sort of semi distributors in their own right. They buy stock with their money and position it. So I did that for 4 days, then went into hospital with some stroke. Uh,
My
Not being
goodness.
used to, I think coming from Calcutta, this was and Ahmedabad, which also was not that severe, but
Hmm.
Jodhpur was 50 degrees or thereabouts.
Hmm.
After whole days of cycling, it was quite murderous. But that's how it began. In ITC, you tend to do stints across sales and brands, and things keep staying quite interesting. Plus,
Hmm.
I did cigarettes only for about half of the decade I was there. The other
Hmm.
half, they put me into fashion. So I was part of the team which launched this lifestyle retail business. So that was interesting, though not really my scene. Very little understanding or empathy for clothes or fashion of any
Hmm.
sort. So, but good fun. Yeah. So I stayed around. I kept doing different things. They were all interesting.
Hmm. And how did the B2B happen? Was it like, so you have been sort of thinking at some point of time that I need to do something different?
Actually, I was so my last couple of years at ITC, they'd asked me to launch this mass market apparel brand called John Players,
Okay,
which
yeah,
again was
that was
interesting.
quite well known.
Yeah, so that was interesting because we set up a supply chain through Nepal. Sanjeev Puri was that
Okay.
time the chairman of Surya Nepal. He built a factory. India has a very good arrangement where at that time, fabric or textiles had very large import duties, but not if you brought them through Nepal with some value addition. So I did that for a couple of years, launched the brand. Then that's when things started getting a bit boring for me because I think in FMCG ultimately your moment of truth is in front of a retailer saying, Malik Mal le lo. While simultaneously, again, discontinuities have always been interesting for me. There was an emerging discontinuity in India premised on Adam Smith's invisible hand around this whole IT space post Y2K. And I met people from HCL Tech, which was sub half a billion, was sort of the small cousin of HCL Infosystems. And
Which was the hardware side, right?
it was the hardware side, and I really liked people. Right? So people who are writing mission critical avionics software. Some of the leaders who interviewed me, we did it at one chai shop in Noida, having cooler chai. That kind of stuff appeals to me. So again,
Sure.
I thought something interesting is going on. Let's go check it out, and that's how I landed.
So anything carried forward from B2C world?
I think you know the the B2C world understands how to build brands. That is what I learned a lot at HCL, and I would say the B2B world excels at, let's say, understanding intentional demand creation or segmentation, focus, etc. But the artistry around how to build a brand is very powerfully manifested in B2C, and that came in, and you may have encountered a lot of that during those years at HCL with employees first, customers second, and relationship beyond the contract, and lots of stuff which really made HCL Tech something of a brand in the global IT services space.
And that whole employee first brand, I don't think any IT services space before that actually have tried that part, right? I remember the Infosys story, late 90s, got popular primarily for their PR based, obviously, because that's how IT services companies, I think, have created their narrative. But those compliance, the financial reporting, those best practices, I think become very, so Infosys become a kind of a reference brand into what ideally a business, B2B businesses should try to be in the tech space. I think they were like spotless, which all intellectual group of people doing businesses with open book sheet, doing transparent reporting. So they did really well. And the other thing I think they did well was that I think that was one of the first brand which actually started speaking that how ordinary people can become partly owner of the company, because they popularized that ESOP thing, I think,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
and can own the company, some part of it, and also become millionaire, around that time, right, which was never heard of.
Yeah.
And I think after that I saw HCL, which actually made this whole employee first thing, which is very powerful, because at the end of the day, it's a services based organization, and employee is your most important asset. And but converting that into that narrative, so that is one. And I think the other one that you mentioned is the contract less part, right?
Relationship beyond the contract.
Beyond the contract, yes. So
Yeah.
so moving on, if I so before Google, like you worked in leadership positions in SAP. We just spoke about HCL, and then markets as well. When you take up a new role, right, what do you really look for first? I mean, is there a opportunity that you gauge, or maybe a gap that exists, and you have an eye to sort of fill that up? I mean, what do you really look for?
So, I think I primarily look for discontinuities, Jaideep. So, like I said, right, HCL, the discontinuity was this whole Indian IT phenomenon. And business wise, HCL represented that because it was the first to bring applications and infrastructure offshoring combined. So, a total outsourcing coming offshore. And that's where it started winning the big deals. Similarly, to me, SAP was the discontinuity around digital transformation at the time, because when I moved from HCL, those last couple of years I was part of the team which set up their digital business. And one thing I could see with clients globally is the anchor point there was really SAP, and with S4 HANA coming in, I'm talking to that period, clearly SAP was the bulwark on which digital transformation was being planned, which is why, to check that discontinuity, I went there. And same holds true for markets and markets. I joined markets, and one is, I know the Indian startup ecosystem exploding. So I wanted to feel out a startup and be part of that ecosystem. Secondly, the markets and markets business was all around identifying disruption and monetizing disruption. And in a post-COVID time frame, you could anticipate that there would be a whole lot of disruption. And there was a very interesting business model possibility around
Mhm.
creating a firm which would help clients globally discover and monetize those disruptions in their business. So each of them, there was a discontinuity, which at that time I found greatly of interest. Google also, right? So when I joined Google, biggest discontinuity is AI. And if you look at players across the landscape, to my mind, Google Cloud's AI strategy was not LLM based.
Mm.
It was platform based, it was stack based with Vertex and everything else that they're doing, which I found a very interesting also at potentially the biggest discontinuity any of us have lived through, which is AI. So I wanted that ringside seat. So that's the one, anywhere there's discontinuity, I'm happy to go check it out. It
Mm.
probably fuels my desire for something interesting, something that is great fun to be around in your workplace.
Yeah, and I like the way you put it, like, which is discontinuity, and not disruption. So that's interesting, because I think we are more used to hearing of disruptions, like AI-led disruption, cloud-led disruption, and I think some of these junctures, cloud was at SAP HANA. That transition was there, right? And
Yeah.
now Google at a peak. And interestingly, you mentioned that, and I would like to know a little more about your current role. I mean, what is the charter? What is the mission that you are trying to achieve through marketing and probably beyond?
So, okay, you want the mission and hardcore business OKR terms or philosophical?
Philosophical, yeah.
See, I think I have this view, and maybe might be incorrect, it's just my view, that AI is here not for cost to serve, but for capacity to serve. And capacity to serve problems today are massive in the developing world. They may not exist in the developed world because, by definition, in the developed world, there is more capital per citizen, and therefore you have higher productivity, higher GDP, whatever it is. We have countries like ours have low capital per person, and therefore, we are unable to. Capital is the route to resolve capacity to serve problems. We don't have capital. AI is a technology, is another route. To explain what I mean by that, uh, today I'll give you an estimate that if in India every citizen were to receive adequate health care, we need 600,000 more doctors. We cannot produce the capacity to serve. But imagine this, if not, it's probably possible right now, but let's take more safety word. Very shortly into the future, you give graduates in every village an agent, and 90%, in IT language, L1, L2, L3, your entire L1 can be dealt with, and suddenly you would have solved. So now apply the same thinking in food, agriculture, education. In fact, living in Gurgaon, I would say even for waste management or roads, in basic infrastructure. So we are strewn with capacity to solve problems, and I believe AI will accelerate the process of solving. So today, these will actually be solved by companies and by government entities, which is what Google Cloud works with. So my purpose right now is to see how many such problems we can engineer solutions for. So to give you a very nice example, one I love, we've done some work with Manipal hospitals, and
Okay.
in Bangalore,
Okay.
uh, AI has been used to transform the nurse handover process. I posted this on my LinkedIn. The nurse handover process happens on every shift change. So every day
Mm-hmm.
used to take 70 minutes. It takes less than 20 now. So 50 minutes per nurse per day.
Is
India has
released.
300,000 nurses. Do the math.
This is obviously a direct impact in a country or in an environment where we are so understaffed. And I guess this is something that I guess can also be there will be use cases for doctors as well for such maybe not handover but in some other use cases. So you did that with Manipal and then you are taking it to other hospital also now, or what is the
Yeah, so we will. Right now, first, Manipal's done this in Bangalore. They will
Hmm.
have to take it to their global, their national chain.
Got it. Okay.
So we can work with that,
Okay.
but there are several other such areas.
Interesting. So, in terms of now moving into a little bit into more in the B2B marketing per se, and before that, before I move, how is your team sort of structured? I mean, do you have like a little bit in terms of like brand building, traditional demand gen, maybe social media content? How does the structure look like?
So actually, see, primarily, so there are four primary areas of structure. So one is around the communications piece, which is the brand building part, which to an extent is how do you build brand for India? How are we relevant to the country? The other three areas, one massive area is the whole developer marketing piece. We
Hmm.
just
Yep.
recently entered the Guinness Book. We did the world's largest agentic AI hackathon. In fact, just
Wow.
2 weeks back. The third area is direct marketing, clients that we serve directly, and the fourth is partner marketing. So
Got it.
broadly, these are the four constituents of how we run marketing.
Got it. Got it. And considering you have both SMBs and enterprise, your motions are also different for each of these, I guess,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So, in terms of B2B marketing, like now I want to really spend a little bit time on B2B marketing because that is the core, at least in this platform. You may have obviously seen last 10 years, there is a big sort of evolution that has happened. Right? What I wanted to actually check with you is that how do you see this changed over the years? I mean, are there any blind spots that we have today? And what are the promising developments that are happening or the changes that are happening in the B2B space?
So from I my view, Jaideep, is the so firstly B2B marketing. Let me put it like this: the underlying principle for me is brand is equal to business model. So
Okay.
this is not, you can't sell it like toffee or whatever unless what you promise as value is actually delivered through the business model. As a marketer, you failed. So I'm very wary about making claims, etc. You have to therefore fundamentally get involved in shaping the proposition itself that gets
Hmm.
given to the market, and in
Hmm.
testing. So, like, one word of advice I would always give is don't campaign till you have lighthouse in B2B. So you launch a new product and you jump into the market with PR, digital, all that stuff. Don't do that. Find the first two or three customers, have brilliant implementation, create advocacy. And once you have lighthouse, then only, and that's something I keep saying, there's a difference between NPD and scale.
Hmm.
My sense, at least for B2B marketing out of India, the way it has changed is, I think, if you go back a couple of decades, it was a lot more commodity selling. And therefore, you sought to couch yourself in language. And that's when brand equal to business model broke down.
So when you say commodity sell, let's double click on that, right? Do you mean that we are selling to procurement?
You are, but more importantly, I'm saying you are disguising what you're selling. So you are selling people, like you said, but then you're couching it in transformation and disruption and all these big words, which aren't,
Rappers.
yeah, which aren't borne out by your business model, quite frankly. Which also is why, if you see the HCL story, it worked because when you said relationship beyond the contract as a positioning statement, it was a statement of culture and not of performance.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I'll make you smarter or I'll deliver performance or whatever it is. I'm just saying I will walk shoulder to shoulder with you and try my best and not disappoint you because of something that's written in a contract. So it's a relationship dimension positioning, not a product dimension positioning.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think today, if you ask me where B2B marketing has gone to value, if you aren't selling value and if you don't know how to market value, you will become in B2B a glorified event. You're going to end up hiring a hotel, getting chairs put in, knocking up a stage, basically all the job done by the event company. And then you will run around, find some speakers, put them up, hire some other company who will invite the acquisition of guests, most of whom are people who turn up every time there's free booze and food, and that is a problem. That doesn't work anymore. You have to be very, so to my mind, you have to think about where the function falls in the P&L. If it's in the lower half of the P&L as a cost structure, AI will optimize the function of it. You have to, as a marketer today, you have to raise your function to the top half of the P&L, where you are a revenue contributor, and then AI will ensure you get invested in. So
Perfect. Yeah,
that I
yeah.
find is the big shift.
So I think that kind of relates to my next question, and maybe we can just expand that a little bit more on what you said. So therefore, in 2025 and beyond, what should really B2B marketers own, and how should they measure the outcome? Will it be like in plain vanilla we say revenue?
I don't want to comment on that. It should be first. The only comment I leave it to is have line of sight to the PNL. So you should, and I'm not saying that's the only OKR or whatever, but if asked, you need to be able to justify your presence and your investments in the context of your business's PNL. Find a way to do that. And that's why if you end at saying things like MQL, SQL, pipeline, and so on and so forth, then those are the languages which will get you to the bottom part of that PM.
Agree.
Right?
And I personally know that in numerous occasions you have led that or walked that talk. So I wanted you to go back to some of your old roles and how you actually brought that, or exhibited that or performed that. Because I think one or two occasions when I had an opportunity to be part of a group where you were presenting something, and I still remember, I think 7 8 years back, where you spoke about how as a marketer you directly going back to the event part, right? You did smaller events where you held that entire conversation agenda, and that agenda actually was at the center of the entire sort of um, the brand was promising to deliver to the customer, right? And marketer, as a marketer, you held that, had that entire point of view, or the thought leadership aspect of it, and had conversation with customers. And that's where I think a lot of it is like, you going back to that example, or the point of view that you said, is that you need to understand where and align with your right side of the PNL, and
Yeah.
not like one rule applies to everything.
Right. I've always seen that as part of the role. And there are a couple of ways of doing this, Jaydeep. So as a marketer, I think you put one of that. One is customer intimacy. So as a marketer, can you speak to lots of customers in a value a creative fashion. And you may have noticed at SAP, while I joined to run marketing, within a year they made me their chief customer
Chief
officer as
customer
well.
officer. Yeah.
Part of the nature of what I do is I need to talk to a lot of customers, because without that I cannot have an understanding of value. So that is one area I would say. The second is in the build of propositions, there is an orchestration task. And the third is the market always has discontinuities. Going back to one of my favorite themes, discontinuities are opportunities. So let me give you an SAP example. So I joined SAP in 2016 towards the end. One of the first were, because the big discontinuity then was GST coming in July of 2017.
Okay.
And I was asking people that what are we doing for GST, and we weren't doing anything. So we pulled together a team from labs and the field organization and actually built a GST compliance solution on SAP Cloud Platform. What's very interesting is in the year 2017, that product, which was locally cobbled together, accounted for a quarter of SAP India's cloud revenue. So it's there, right? The organization has the capability, the opportunity exists. Who's going to bridge that gap? Typically, a sales function may not, because they are operational, they are driving the day to day, etc. So I would very much see marketing having this trifecta role. The
Hmm.
first is pushing your addressable market by understanding what's happening in the market, where the discontinuities are. uh, the second is continuous customer interaction, not to try and sell, but to understand what makes the customer buy, therefore what represents value to the customer. And the third is having relationships across the organization so that you can orchestrate value in the context of the priority.
Yeah, I think this is nicely put, and that kind of reminds me one of the fundamental learning even I had in the last 3 4 years in particular. While we obviously have our basic tendencies to look at things more inside out, and we are almost quite desperate to talk about our stories. Especially, we love to talk about our technology capabilities and lead with those stories. We know that, and we kind of believe that sales is hard, right? Let's just take that as a kind of simple premise. The reality is that actually B2B buying is a lot more harder. And unfortunately, it is often decided by maybe a big shot and given it to a much younger person to do the initial work to come back and with suggestions, right? And often the alternatives are kind of makeshift. Hire this role, get this put together two three tools like Excel sheet, some other tool to see if we can fix this, address this temporarily to get over with this, right? Until this becomes like a sore pain where you just can't live with, and then you have a mandate that find out a vendor who can solve this problem. So in a situation like this, understanding that journey, understanding where and how these decisions are made and how customers make these decisions, often not so rationally but quite randomly and sometimes emotionally, is something often overlooked in B2B marketing. And I think leading with always a technology discussion or a solution led conversation sometimes can go way off from where the customers are
Actually,
coming
see,
from.
it works. Go back to the point I made, right? Commodities.
Mm.
It works when you're selling a commodity on price. If you're faced with a guy who needs to buy it, if you're cheaper, he'll. So the minute you go to value, it doesn't work at all. And all the things which made you very good at commodity selling are now actually impediments, because in commodity selling, you never learned how to listen.
And you don't need a marketing necessarily there anyway,
Yeah.
rather than probably a broad based communication
Yeah,
coverage.
you do engagement.
Yeah.
Your top of funnel, and this is very, it's a, I don't want us to jump into this today, maybe, Jaideep, but I think from a marketer's perspective, there is a fundamental funnel transformation going on because of AI. We are all used to this, large top of funnel, which is engagement driven MQLs. With AI, the consumer or the customer's discovery process is crashing and becoming more intentional. So now you will have thinner intent driven funnels, intent driven MQLs, populating a much narrower top of funnel, but with much higher conversion rates. And that will obviously demand a very different approach.
Agreed, agreed. With AI in the backdrop, is there anything that you see today, the B2B marketing practitioners? And I'm asking this question because, there are so much of nuances. I'm not going into those details, but how should really one sort of address this? Because I speak to a lot of people on this platform, off the platform, and interestingly, different people are different journeys, content being one of the most, and we spoke about it, before we started this conversation, that content is like one of the first sort of incumbent withdrawing kind of action that AI is driving. And then there are data specific data analytics and creating that segmentation, personalizing your messaging, delivering it across the channel. And I have worked with a lot of B2C companies, part of my Mo Engage assignment, I was telling you, over 200 plus B2C marketers. Their main, this thing, the message across the platform, and they have a communication stack completely. They are trying to make it now agentic, that okay, my first channel is the cheapest channel, is which is zero cost, then comes maybe an email, then comes maybe a message, a WhatsApp message, and the cost goes, and the way it is structured is like fallback, fallback, fallback. If this doesn't work, go to this. If this, and this happens completely sort of AI driven. But I see this more of a tech and delivery and operations part. I do not see necessarily this is taking up a big way a strategy part of it. There is a content part of it, like we discussed. Where else and how is AI sort of in your mind kind of being applied now?
So you're right. So, I think this is a huge subject.
Yes, it is, and obviously it requires a complete dedicated
Yeah. So
discussion.
let me keep it short,
Sure.
Judith. See, I think there is a fundamental operating model transformation under. The entire marketing operating model will change. The beginning point is, let's say, what I talked about, that if the nature of your funnel is shifting from engagement driven to intent driven, the way your marketing model works will have to change to cater to that. Now, an operating model has three components: it has people, process, and technology. I think today, as you rightly said, the application of AI is coming on an existing operating model through the technology piece. So we are tooling up. AI is a
Hmm.
help, whether it's content creation or some kind of analytics or even content distribution and campaign activation. But we are tooling what we already used to do. I think there will be a fundamental relook required on the function itself and its operating model. And you will first have to start with people. How do people integrate this and change the way they operate in what they do? And there are several examples. I don't want to, but go back to the capacity to serve. So, as an individual professional, think about the things you lack capacity to serve. And can you change the way you operate as a professional, integrating AI to suddenly do things which hitherto were impossible? So let's start there. That will automatically lead, because we exactly don't know what's coming. But like if you go back to the 2000s and so on, when the internet, the last innovation super cycle was really internet and mobile from 2000 to 2010. But we never knew what was possible till suddenly. I was there at ITC, right? We
Hmm.
had Bill Sport and Bill's,
Hmm.
and we said, let's make a website. And our understanding was, here's the website. Okay, let's put all the products. We need a catalog. The idea that anybody could buy, we laughed out of the room because it was understood. It was understood wisdom that without touching fabric and trying, people cannot buy clothes. Now, when I tell you this, you feel like nothing, right? So we don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
We didn't understand till models like Airbnb and Uber, and I dare say Google itself, were born and showed us what was impossible is now possible. So same things going to happen. We will need completely new processes, but it will start with the people. So my suggestion would be, are marketers ensuring that their teams, their people are being transformed using AI, as opposed to AI automating better some of the existing.
Yeah, no, I think it requires, obviously, first of all, we really don't know, as you mentioned, right? Second thing is because this is will be like one step creating a fusion to the next step and to the next step. So it is difficult to predict. Right now it is tooling sort of phase. Right now it is more of displacement phase of, something that's being done manually, changing that can a tool kind of a phase, right? You spoke about people aspect. One of the things I actually wanted to touch upon is, for marketers like us, often I have seen that getting carried away with vanity metrics, getting carried away with task which maybe is at a bigger picture is not that important, but just because it fancies you, you get carried away and start working on with that task in isolation, and you get drifted away from the main motion that organization is driving, right? And you may end up doing, you just mentioned some time back, pulling chairs and running behind people to get speakers for an event and things like that, right? Working cross functionally and getting people onto the same table with the agenda that probably you have spotted an opportunity, and how therefore that needs to, like the example that you gave in SAP, right? There was an opportunity on the GST case. I'm sure getting people to, agree and work on that and putting together a solution quickly and taking it to market means, aligning people with that vision. Or let's say you as a marketer who's creating a brand story with a promise, certain promise to your customers, and with your campaign sometimes it die downs because it never sort of trickles down to where once the customer is onboarded, that experience that your brand has promised before never been tracked and measured and seen whether it is really meeting that standards, the spec, right? It is hard for marketers to get everybody, sales, product, engineering, to agree, finance, and build a consensus. What has worked for you, Krishna, and what has not worked for you? What is your suggestion? It's an age old problem, it's not something that is new.
What I have found working is, so let me put it like this: the first solution to my mind is to share a common vision on the outcome. So go back to the point I made. Can you see your end outcome aligning to the PNL? And if you can, so can others. Because if what success looks like means the same to all of you, then it's very easy to work together. I think the problem starts when I think my success looks like a pipeline attributed to marketing, and you think your success looks like your quota being fulfilled. And as Kipling said, never the twain shall meet. So I would say come to an understanding mutually with the various parties on what success looks like, and have a common definition of what success looks like. That's it. After that, things flow very smooth.
Okay, let's switch the gear and talk about a little bit about your band, right?
Mhm.
So you have a musical band, and I would let you talk about what it is. Some of us are aware, many of us are aware maybe, but many are not aware as well. But what does this band mean to you personally and professionally? And
So
how
I
do you make
had
space for your creativity alongside your senior leadership role?
No, so Jadip, I had a band. I think, see, the band again was a vehicle to do something. Once it got done, it sort of naturally disbanded. But Contraband released an album back in 19, and I think the album was the pinnacle of its existence. So we came together as an entity to write music. We wrote music, not that it was very successful. And one of the jokes I always had is we were a seven-man band, and when we played shows frequently, we had more on stage than in the audience. So similarly, but you can find the album on any streaming site you use. Band's called Contraband. The album is called Currency, and it's white collar rock. I personally, I'm very biased. I wrote them, but I think lyrically the songs are quite meaningful. I'm very critical about my melodic or musical abilities, but lyrically, I do believe they're pretty good. So you're asking me what role? Now, music has a constant role. So today, post COVID in Gurgaon, you will also find three of us created a community called ATM,
Mhm.
Addicted to Music. You'll find it on YouTube. Now, this is a gang of corporate, many of whom are also musicians. So, in fact,
Okay.
this Saturday, there's a concert every month,
Okay.
usually last Saturday of the month. This month it will be this coming Saturday, which is last but one for some peculiar reasons. But all of this community comes together, plays music, engages. But so that keeps that spark alive, because as if this is something you love, it cannot be commercial. And I always keep thinking that, make build your career in your second love, not the first. Because the minute you put your first love to the trials of commercial requirement or making livelihoods, it can seriously compromise. Sort of that's the role it plays. It's the first love. It exists purely as a source. So to me, music is a bit like meditation for many other people. So it takes you inside, and you are at peace and you are in harmony. So great from that perspective, and it's perpetually part of. In fact, I'm sitting here talking to you with my guitar next to me, and frequently in between calls, I'll just pick it up and strum along a bit.
So it seems like it is almost seamlessly as integrated with your life.
Yeah, it's part of work-life harmony, as they say.
I
And
still would
actually,
like to know how do you find time with your big responsibilities to practice and to prioritize. You have family. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from this.
I don't see it like that at all, right?
Okay,
I don't
you
understand
don't
the
you don't
concept of
separate
it.
this.
Yeah, so it's just life. So there's work happening on one side, there's music. It all happens together. I have a feeling it may go back to our, if you go back a bit, that conversation around enough.
Okay.
Enough is a clear concept for you, everything is possible. But
Hmm.
the minute you go beyond enough,
Hmm.
that's when you start, and rightly so, horses for courses. So if
Hmm.
you really want massive commercial success or massive positions, etc., if that's what gets you going, then of course you will have to prioritize the work that gets you there over
Hmm. Hmm.
everything else. In my
But
case, I am good with enough on multiple fronts.
okay, we'll leave it at that. That is a fair answer. Just wanted to let's switch gear again and wanted to check with you. So I think a lot of work that you have done, at least many of us who follow your work and in the industry, people know you. We really admire a lot of stuff, right? But can you think of a win or maybe a good work that you are personally very proud, but not too many people actually know about it?
Yeah, so probably, the one thing I find of great interest is actually it's happened quite recently. I'm very proud, but you won't probably know about it, though I put it out on Facebook. So, one of the songs I wrote for my band's album was recently performed by my younger daughter at
Wow.
some all NCR school rock competition, and they won the first prize for that. So, daughter singing the father's original,
This is
and winning a competition where all the other, and they're all good bands, right? These are singing music written by some of the biggest, the Iron Maidens and the Avenged Sevenfold, so on and so forth. So that was quite interesting. So
hmm,
if you check out my YouTube channel, it's the only video I've posted. Her school's music teacher shot it on his phone and stitched it with some practice session, sent it to me. So I've got that up. So that I'm extremely proud of.
that hands down definitely a matter of pride, without a doubt. Okay, great. So I think the other aspect I wanted to check with you, did you ever have a mentor in your journey?
I've had mentors throughout my journey, like people I look up to. For instance, in ITC, I would say Kurush Grant was a big mentor. At HCL, it was Vineet Nair. Vineet was a big mentor. At SAP, it was Devdeep Sengupta. Uh, so, yeah, I've always had people who I looked up to, from whom I learned.
Any do you think any misconception people have about you which you wish people shouldn't have or don't have?
I think you have announced it several times in this chat, that I'm this extraordinarily capable, highly
No,
successful.
I'm not taking that.
That is a complete misconception.
Anything outside that. I'm not buying that. I'm not telling this because I feel that I know it, right? So
So no, if you know it, that's what I'm pointing out, that is a misconception.
okay.
Pretty average guy doing pretty average things, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm getting enough out of it. So as long as you know that.
Hmm, hmm.
Other than that, I don't know. I don't see myself as somebody you should have much of a conception about, including translating something like that into misconception.
Okay, so did you feel or face any time you felt that you failed, and how did you and you were convinced that you failed, and how did you actually got yourself back on the track?
Actually, again, so Jadip, so the way my life has gone, the way I've grown up, right? I only keep thinking I've succeeded. So it's like wherever I am today, if you had asked me, let's say when I was in class six, that you'd be like this, with a family like this, and living the kind of life that you do, to me, it would have been inconceivable. So I don't see much failure, frankly, and that may be a weak spot or a problem. But I am always extremely happy, grateful, contented. So
Have you,
I don't understand this concept called failure
fair enough, have you experienced any self-doubt anytime?
all the time. So whenever I decide that I will do something, there is to an extent some self doubt about a decision. That is it the right decision? But it doesn't matter enough. Like if at that point in time I'm feeling it, I'll go for it.
Cool. So before we wrap up, Krishnan, I want to do a very short rapid fire. So do you remember the first album you ever bought?
Yeah,
What
Thriller,
is it?
Michael Jackson.
Cool. Awesome. I like that answer. What is a strange or quirky thing that never fails you to make you smile?
Sorry, just repeat that question.
What is that weird or quirky thing that never fails to make you laugh or smile inside?
Actually, everything makes me laugh. Really, it's very tough. So my general first response to anything is to laugh or to smile. Most
Okay.
people find it highly irritating. That's the second thing, maybe. So once you get irritated with my smile, then I find that funny as well.
If you were to give yourself one message when you are like 21, 22 today, what would that be?
You're in a good place, brother.
Love it. Okay. How do you keep yourself updated? You read books outside, of course, maybe fiction, non-fiction, business books, listen to podcasts, maybe listen to any other, or go to events.
I think I read only fiction. I don't read business books unless under duress. But I keep myself updated largely through reading the newspaper and watching YouTube.
Okay.
I would say YouTube is my source of most
What
interesting.
kind of stuff you watch?
YouTube, I think there are sort of three categories of things that I watch. The first is all these late night comedy shows because now that Trump is back, they have lots of material. So it's extremely entertaining. The second is news and analysis, so things like the Bloombergs and so on of the world. And the third is stuff around AI. You'd see a huge number of podcasters actually demonstrating things they're picking up, whether it's on a Gemini or a Claude or a Vertex. Or I tend to watch a lot of those.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So, where can people contact you or find you?
Hmm?
Where can people find you or contact you?
I think LinkedIn is the most convenient place. So I tend to respond or not, but it's the best
Let's.
possibility.
I think. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll share your LinkedIn handle in the YouTube description, and a few references that you made here and there. I'll add them as well for the readers to go and check out. But overall, Krishna, it has been a fantastic conversation. I just didn't realize that it is already an hour past.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your insights, being candid and sharing your point of views. It is what I expected from our conversation. So, once again, really thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
my pleasure, Jaideep, and thank you for spending this time with me. All the very best.
Thank you.